It's a big week for JayZ. His Rock Nation is geared up to produce the most watched live performance of the year, the Super Bowl halftime show. And of course, he was there to cheer on his wife, who took home the coveted award of Album of the Year at this year's Grammys. So in light of all of that, he's also making a surprising move in his ongoing back and forth with Tony Buzbee. Now at this point, we all know who the Texas-based attorney is.
Everything exploded the moment the silent one finally opened his mouth and started unloading a storm of dark buried secrets that nobody ever thought would see daylight. For years, everyone thought he was a quiet
individuals who intend to bring civil claims in civil court against Sean Diddy Combs, as well as claims against many other individuals and entities that we will name as defendants as we file these individual cases.
And of course, we know later that Jane Doe, who is being represented by the Texas attorney, filed a suit a couple weeks after this press conference accusing Diddy of raping her when she was just 13 years old. Then amended that complaint weeks later, adding JayZ, Sean Carter's name to that child rape lawsuit alongside Diddy. A female celebrity was also mentioned in that complaint as well. However, her identity has since remained a mystery. Since that happened, first, let me say both Sean Combs and Sean Carter have denied those accusations. Diddy's team said, quote, "In court, the truth will prevail, that Mr. Combs never sexually assaulted or trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor." Meanwhile, JayZ made a scathing statement of denial, mainly targeting Tony Buzbee. He said in part, quote, "My lawyer received a blackmail attempt called a demand letter from a lawyer named Tony Buzbee. What he had calculated was the nature of these allegations and the public scrutiny would make me want to settle. No, sir, it had the opposite effect. It made me want to expose you for the fraud you are in a very public fashion. So no, I will not give you one red penny." Now that statement went on to call Tony Buzbee a deplorable human, a man with no valor, and an ambulance chaser in a cheap suit. Now while Diddy sits in a jail cell awaiting trial, by the way, pleaded not guilty to those charges, denies all the accusations made in the various lawsuits, JayZ and Tony Buzbee have been going back and forth with lots of motions filed, complaints filed, and accusations flying on both ends. The Jane Doe alleging she was raped by Diddy and JayZ went on NBC, where they pointed out consistencies in her account of what happened, including that her father picked her up after the alleged rape. Her father later told NBC he didn't recall that. She claimed she spoke to a celebrity there, but that celeb wasn't even in New York at that time. And photos showed Diddy and JayZ at different locations than the Jane Doe described. Now that interview happened in mid-December. By the end of that month, JayZ sued Buzbee for defamation and extortion. JayZ's legal team has also been pushing for the Jane Doe to not hide under anonymity. And of course, JayZ's lawyers have been trying to get his name off that child rape lawsuit or just have it dismissed altogether. Now a judge ruled that she can proceed anonymously for now, but scolded JayZ's attorneys for their combative motions and inflammatory language used against Tony Buzbee. Then in January, a legal petition was filed by a Texas man who is represented by Tony Buzbee, who also accused JayZ's lawyers of bribing people to sue Buzbee and his law firm. So a lot's happened. Now in a surprising move, JayZ's lawyer Alex Spiro is seemingly softening up on Buzbee. In a letter to Judge Annalisa Torres, the same one who previously scolded him, Spiro wrote, quote, "Dear Judge Torres, we write on behalf of defendant Sean Carter to respectfully request that Mr. Carter's motion for sanctions pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 11 be withdrawn at this time without prejudice. We have discussed this matter with counsel for plaintiff who consents to this submission and agrees the withdrawal is without prejudice." And that motion was terminated. So what does it mean? Well, last month, JayZ's lawyer asked the court to impose sanctions against Buzbee for allegedly failing to do a reasonable investigation before filing the rape allegations against him. JayZ's lawyer even pointed out that Buzbee admitted to not even meeting Jane Doe before he signed off on her complaint. But Buzbee maintains the case was appropriately vetted. So while the move from JayZ's lawyers was surprising, it might also be a part of their strategy. At this time, neither JayZ, his legal team, or Tony Buzbee have publicly responded to this surprising move. But it's likely not the end of this ongoing legal saga, and we could hear more very soon. Let's unpack this further with attorney and litigator Rich Schoenstein. Rich, always great to see you. What's your reaction to this move done by JayZ's lawyer Alex Spiro? Are you surprised that he asked the judge to drop the motion for sanctioning Tony Buzbee?
Well, I'm a little bit surprised because, asking for sanctions.
The guy who never reacted, never complained, never slipped, never showed anything beyond a polished, emotionless exterior. But now he's done being quiet. Now he's ripping the curtain straight off the empire built by the other one. The one who spent years flexing, dominating, intimidating, and pretending he could bury anything he wanted just by throwing money at shadows. The moment the quiet one dropped that first sentence, you could feel the panic ripple across the entire empire. It wasn't even what he said. It was a tone, that dead, cold, fed-up tone that sounded like someone who had been pushed too far for too long. Someone who finally decided that the truth was his only weapon left, and he was ready to aim it straight at the person who once controlled everything around him. People close to the empire swear they've never seen such a sudden shift. Like one man's voice had the power to split the entire structure right down the middle. All the rumors, all the whispers, all the late-night speculation that everyone pretended wasn't real suddenly didn't feel like rumors anymore.
And even scream.
Is a pretty aggressive move, and so to turn around and withdraw that motion is a notable retreat from that move. So I wasn't expecting it, and the question is, why did they do it? And I would assume that's what we're going to talk about.
Definitely. And I, also want to ask, this letter said they want to withdraw it without prejudice. Why is that part important?
Well, without prejudice just means they could bring it again. So you can either withdraw a motion with prejudice, which means it's resolved and we can't bring it again, or without prejudice, which means the court doesn't have to deal with this now, but we're not waiving our rights. We're going to save the right to bring the motion again at a later time.
And, as you just mentioned before, I guess we're going to get into, why was this move even done in the first place? Now, JayZ's lawyer was previously scolded by that same judge for using inflammatory language against Tony Buzbee. But do you think that this is a part of a new strategy not to be harsh on the Jane Doe lawyer, instead hope to just get this suit dismissed instead?
Possibly. So that first thing you mentioned about the judge's reaction, I have three theories about why this was withdrawn. And the first one is exactly what you said. The judge has already indicated on the record that she's not thrilled with the way the attorneys are going at each other in this. And no judge is. No judge wants to make a case about conflict between the lawyers. Lawyers end up skirmishing all the time. They don't like each other all the time. They accuse each other of bad stuff all the time. And no judge wants the case to be about that. The judge wants the case to be about the merits, about the claims, about the parties, not about the lawyers. So she dressed down the lawyers at one point about this kind of activity, and it's possible that they have withdrawn the motion because they just don't think the judge is going to really consider it, given her predisposition. That's one possibility.
And what's your other possibility?
Well, I have two other possibilities, and there could be a mix of the three. The second possibility that occurred to me is, for some reason, the people who brought the motion, and that's the Quinn Emanuel firm, no longer think the motion is that strong. It's possible they've evaluated things. It's possible, they were claiming that the plaintiffs didn't vet the claims enough and made representations in the complaint that could not have been true. And maybe with further analysis, they've come to a view that the allegations in the complaint are not so demonstrably false that you could prevail on a motion for sanctions. Remember, a motion for sanctions is really hard to win on. I mean, they're very infrequently granted, especially in a contentious case like this. So I wouldn't have expected it to be granted anyway. So the second possibility is that Quinn Emanuel just decided it's not the best motion. It's not our best. We have a separate motion to dismiss the complaint against our client. That's the motion that we want to see through. That's the motion we want the judge to focus on. We want her to focus on the merits and dismiss the claims against our client. We don't care about the sanctions stuff.
He didn't yell.
He didn't need to. Every word he spoke hit harder than a punch because it was coming from someone who had been there from the very beginning. Someone who saw everything. Someone who wasn't supposed to talk, but now was talking anyway. Because whatever line was crossed, it pushed him into a place where silence was no longer an option. The other one, the empire builder, instantly went into panic mode. Sources say he started calling every lawyer, fixer, damage control strategist, and crisis manager he's ever used. You could practically hear the chaos through the walls. People running, shouting, panicking, trying to figure out how to stop the bleeding. But the problem was simple. When the truth comes from inside, there's no stopping it. You can't control a leak when the leak is a former ally who knows every locked door, every back room, every hidden file, every buried night nobody was ever supposed to speak about. And the quiet
to get it go. And my third theory, which I have no basis for other than sheer speculation, I want to say that up front, is that there's some kind of deal here between the lawyers. The lawyers have accused each other, right? Busby's accused Quinn Emanuel of going after his clients and trying to get them to bring malpractice cases. Quinn Emanuel's gone after Busby and accused him of trying to drum up clients to bring claims against Combs and against JayZ. And maybe the attorneys have reached some sort of understanding about the ground rules. Maybe not, but maybe they have, and letting this motion go is part of that understanding. That would be my third possible reason.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that it's speculation, but I think by you kind of explaining that, I feel like that might also be very plausible. I want to go back to what you said during kind of your second explanation, where, I'm sure JayZ from his side, he probably wants this lawsuit just to be, or this complaint to be dismissed, or not even amended in the first place, made in the first place. Obviously, nothing goes away in the blink of an eye, But in your opinion, watching all of this legal back and forth that's been unfolding these past few months, do you think there is enough to dismiss, or do you think at a point this will even get litigated?
I think it's going to get litigated. If I had to guess, I haven't really studied the complaint against the motion to dismiss, so I don't have a advanced opinion about it. But my reaction to it is that the complaint accuses him of some very bad stuff, and that ought to be enough to move the case forward. That's my guess. Now, remember, at the outset of these litigations, we go through kind of a honing phase where the dispute is sort of narrowed down to certain parties and certain claims. And sometimes the motion to dismiss doesn't get rid of the case entirely, but it gets rid of some of the claims, or it gets rid of some of the parties. I see today, by way of example, there's a brand new filing dismissing defendant Bad Boy Records, LLC. There were separate claims against that company, and I don't know where all these companies fit in the pantheon of Bad Boy Records, but that company has been dismissed voluntarily from the action. And you'll see that kind of thing at the beginning of civil litigation. The parties and the claims have to be sorted out, and then the case can proceed with discovery.
And we do want to mention to our viewers there that even though Bad Boy Records was dismissed off that complaint, Sean Carter and Sean Combs are both still named there. I also want to talk to you, Rich, about a point that JayZ's lawyer made previously, and that was that Tony Busby never even met with this Jane Doe, despite saying in that press conference back in October that his firm vetted all of the claims. What are your thoughts on that, given that Busby is standing behind Jane Doe and the allegations that she made?
Yeah, well, so Busby, or certainly somebody from Busby's office, should be meeting with these plaintiffs before bringing claims. I mean, you should always meet with your client before you go charging into court with a claim, but all the more so when they're salacious, provocative, inflammatory claims like the ones in this case.
You do the empire not as a kingdom, but as a trap. A glittering cage built on manipulation, control, and intimidation. The kind of stories that make people go silent because they realize this wasn't some petty little feud. This was a revelation. He talked about nights that were supposed to stay off the record, deals that were never meant to be spoken out loud, people who were forced into situations they didn't agree to but couldn't walk away from. He talked about the way the empire builder would twist loyalty into fear, how he built entire rooms where no one felt safe, how he surrounded himself with people who owed him everything and were terrified of losing anything. And the most disturbing part, the quiet one described it all with this calm, almost empty expression, like the trauma had worn him down so much that he couldn't even feel the anger anymore. Just exhaustion, just resignation, just the raw truth spilling out after years of being locked behind tight lips. People who heard him speak say the industry had
You have an obligation to make sure there's a good faith basis for proceeding with the claims. You have to make sure there aren't any red flags that would indicate the claim is false or being concocted, just to extort the parties. You have to do some due diligence. And Busby runs a big firm, and he says he has 120 or so, that was the last number I heard, clients who are potentially bringing claims here. So I'm not saying he had to meet personally with her, but certainly somebody at his firm should have. And I don't know if that happened or not. But if they didn't, I would think they had a little explaining to do.
And do you think it was overly ambitious for him to tout that he was filing 120 lawsuits against Diddy with these big names attached, when really that number was lesser than that? And the only big name that he had added to these various complaints was Sean Carter, aka JayZ.
Yeah, well, remember what he was doing there, because that press conference and those announcements, those are not part of any court case that goes forward. No jury will ever hear about that. He was trying to generate clients and evidence. So he went public and said, I'm the guy. If you now, having heard what the world has heard about Sean Combs, if you now have a claim against him that you want to pursue, I'm the best position to do it because I'm doing the work. I have all these clients. So if you have a claim or if you have evidence or somebody else who is at those parties that there should be claims against, come to my firm and talk to me. That was just a long-winded attorney advertisement. And I think that's one of the issues the defense lawyers have with him, is that he's sort of been doing, self-promotion and attorney advertising in the midst of litigating the case. And sometimes it's hard to distinguish between the two. So I don't know how many clients he actually has. You are correct. The number of lawsuits is well under 120. There's also a possibility that some of those clients have reached settlements already that are just confidential and we don't know about. Again, I have no idea if that's true, but that could be one explanation as to why there are 120 clients and less than 20 lawsuits.
Yeah, because I even think JayZ was kind of making that point when he issued that scathing statement, kind of saying that, alleging that Tony Busby just wanted money out of him to make this all go away. He obviously didn't pay it, said he wouldn't pay it, and then that's kind of how we ended up here a little bit. My final question to you, Rich, is, going back to Alex Spiro asking the judge to dismiss the motion for sanctions against Tony Busby, which the judge did grant, where does Diddy fit into all of this? His trial is nearing. It's in a couple months. If this particular suit, or complaint, I should say, continues to go forward during his trial, does that mean anything for Diddy?
So the complaint, the case can't really go forward that far while there's pending criminal proceedings against Sean Combs. In fact, it's common for a defendant who is subject to criminal and civil proceedings to ask for a stay of the civil proceedings pending the outcome of the criminal proceedings. Because, for example, he can't be made to sit for a deposition in his civil proceeding while he has a criminal proceeding going on and he has his right against.
Everyone had theories. Everyone had
theories. Everyone had suspicions. But hearing it from the inside changed everything. Suddenly, the empire builder didn't look invincible anymore. He looked exposed, cornered, vulnerable in a way no one had ever imagined. Behind the scenes, insiders say the empire builder is spiraling. He's sending threats, bribes, apologies, and desperate messages through every channel he can reach. But every attempt makes him look more frantic, more unhinged, more terrified of what might come next. Because the quiet one hasn't even revealed everything yet. And that's what's sending shockwaves. The idea that this was only the beginning. The industry is whispering that more tapes exist, more documents, more recordings, more people ready to come forward now that someone finally broke the silence. It's like the dam burst and the flood is coming. And the empire builder is standing there watching everything he spent decades constructing crumble under the weight of secrets he never thought would escape. People close to the situation say the empire builder barely sleeps anymore. He's lashing out at everyone around him, convinced they're all turning against him. Paranoia is starting to take over. He's convinced every person in his circle is plotting to betray him. Every phone call could be a leak. Every knock on the door could be another witness ready to come forward. Every headline feels like a countdown. And the quiet one, he's not backing down. He's not hiding. He's not apologizing. He's finally reclaiming every piece of his life that was twisted, controlled, or silenced. And you can hear it in his voice. He's done being afraid. The empire builder always thought he controlled everything. But now he's learning the truth that destroys every tyrant. Once people stop fearing you, you lose all your power. The quiet one kept going, revealing darker and darker details about the psychological games, the emotional manipulation, the sudden mood swings that terrorized everyone in the room. He talked about how the empire builder would lure people in with promises of opportunity, only to trap them in situations they never consented to. He described the way the empire was built like a maze where every exit led back to the same person in charge. He described the nights where you could feel the tension thick in the air, where nobody knew what would set him off, where people would smile through fear because they didn't want to be the next target. He talked about the manipulation disguised as generosity, the coercion disguised as mentorship, the darkness disguised as success. And hearing all that, it made everything click. Every rumor, every strange story people laughed off for years, every sudden disappearance from the Empire's circle, every person who walked away and never spoke a word about why. It all made sense now. And what made the situation even worse was how quickly more people started coming forward. Once the lawsuit opened the floodgates, the trickle became a stream. Former workers hinted at strange experiences. Former friends hinted at toxic environments. Former partners hinted at manipulation. Everyone who ever had a story suddenly felt like this was the moment to speak. The industry is now looking at the empire builder with a different set of eyes, not as a powerful figure, but as someone whose control always depended on silence, a silence that just broke. People inside the empire are scrambling. Some are packing their things. Some are rehearsing statements. Some are pretending they saw nothing. Some are preparing to talk because they know the storm is coming anyway. Lawyers are circling. Investigators are taking interest. Other insiders who were too afraid to speak are suddenly remembering details they buried. And the quiet one, he isn't done. Sources say he is more, much more, enough to erase the entire empire, enough to reveal every twisted, hidden, manipulated corner of the world they all lived in. And for the first time, the industry isn't dismissing him. They're listening. They're watching. They're waiting for the next revelation. The empire builder can't control the narrative anymore. It's out of his hands, out of his reach,